The first story I want to bring up and go through is a story of not really knowing the people around you, picking yourself up and making sure that you get on with what life is about. Please welcome Susan Campbell.
Y'all ready for this?
Hello. How are you?
I'm so excited. So excited.
And it is exciting because you're from Adelaide.
I am.
And just getting out of Adelaide's exciting, isn't it?
Thank you. It's great. Adelaide is great.
Yes.
You've got to work hard.
And when you see these deals, you realise that Adelaide is really great, okay?
Yeah.
So let's start with you. You know, you had a reasonable start. How you met Dipner?
Wow, I met Dipner after my then husband and I, he took me along to the accountant, and the accountant said, "You're earning too much money, you need an investment property." And I went, "Well, you know, that sounds pretty cool. And you need it for negative gearing purposes." I went, "Sure, okay." And my husband at the time went out and found 2 properties, and I went, "Aren't we supposed to research this or something?" And he said, "No, the accountant said buy some properties, negative gearing, you'll be fine." And I went, okay. And one of the properties was a new property on a bit of subdivided land. And I went, "But hasn't the developer already made their cut? Aren't we giving someone else the profit?" He said, "No, negative gearing." So I went, oh, jeepers. I've spent quite a bit of time in my career making sure that I was educated, because I really super value education. And I thought, well, yeah, we've got these 2 investment properties, but I reckon it's going to take a lot of that and a lot of time before we make any money. Sure, it'll keep the accountant happy, but really that doesn't sound that sensible to me. So I said to him, "I'm going to go and do some education." He said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I have to." So I enrolled for Dipner's course, the Ultimate Program, back in 2012, and thought, okay, this now starts to make sense. I was super excited. I thought at the time, okay, I've done the Ultimate Program, I'm going to join Platinum. I had it all mapped out.
But then you're an executive, so you were working for a healthcare company, CEO?
Yep, I was, at the time, I was a CEO. I had decided to specialise in the healthcare arena, and what really touches my heart for a long time now is some time ago my brother, Timothy, took his own life, and I thought, what would it be like to live with vulnerability? Some of the outcomes are pretty horrid, the most horrid it could possibly be. So my corporate career was spent working in health-oriented businesses, particularly businesses that provided services to people living with intellectual disability or mental health issues, to strengthen those businesses so that the people living with vulnerability would get better outcomes. At the time, I was loving that, but my leadership, what I was really interested in, I thought, well, I've really got the property bug, so why don't I focus on property? At the time, our family businesses, we had, by that stage, 4 financial planning businesses, which I'd helped to develop right from the grassroots. We developed 2 from Greenfield and bought 2. I thought, well, why don't I study coaching? So I decided my time would be better utilised doing property for our retirement purposes, and also becoming a qualified coach, a life coach and an executive coach, so I could build a community of leaders so that they could provide really cool outcomes for people living with vulnerability.
So you went off, you've got a good business, you came into the relationship with your husband with about $1 million worth of equity and a property, and you had 2 investment properties, and then in 2013, with all the businesses running and everything running well, and you're doing CEO full-time coaching, you've got knocked back to coaching, and you find out something.
Yeah, overnight. I found out that my 10-year marriage wasn't what I thought it was. I discovered literally overnight in a 24-hour period. Do we go into detail?
Yeah, go for your life. Let's name him as well. I promise it won't get out of this room.
Oh, look, the juicy bits, I suppose, and I don't think back on them now because I go, well, you know, it only makes you stronger. At the time, I was gutted that the person that I'd been married to wasn't the person I thought I was married to. He had very cleverly devised a financial plan to segregate and take from me all of our assets. I mean, everything, over a 5 to 6 year period, and had got expert advice on how to do that, I found out later.
So he forged signatures. He had a couple of accounts at different locations, which were, some of them predominantly had women in them. So he was spending money on
A variety of interests. And do you want to hear a really, really bizarre story? No, I can't tell that one, but I will.
Tell it. Yeah.
Do you know, it's just nuts. I mean, I used to have, this is my preferred hair length, right? And look, for goodness sake, it's just hair. And for a long period of time, it was, if you grow your hair down to your bum, I'll give you $10,000. Yeah, nuts. And I just used to think it was a joke. But part of the interesting activities was a particular interest in, I think it's called pornography, with long hair. So the things that you find out where you don't know who you've been married to, who you thought you were in love with, you get financially conned, you find out that there are other love interests, you find out there are other business interests that you had absolutely no idea. And I stand before you being an educated person, but I was absolutely clueless.
And so was the rest of his family
clueless.
And everyone as well. No one had an idea.
No one knew.
Yeah.
Absolutely no one knew. So overnight, I had gone from living in a household of 7 people, because at the time I'd decided to help 2 young people who were at risk of homelessness that had come from very bad backgrounds. They were living with us as well. I had my son who lives with disability, my other son and my stepson, and it was a robust 7-person household. So overnight, that just went by the wayside. Within 6 months, the PPR was sold, the 4 or 5 investment properties were gone. I obviously had the choice of embarking on a 2 or 3 or 4 year, very, very expensive legal story to try and fight what had happened to me. However, I can remember listening to people like Tony Robbins. I listened to one of Dipna's podcasts and some of her material, got out my original peg in the sand and went, I'm not going to waste 2 or 3 or 4 years on this. I'm going to create my next story. So I remember my son allowed me one Saturday afternoon in bed to be curled up in the fetal position weeping. And he said, that's it. Okay, you're better than that. You've had your one afternoon. Get up, literally get up and get on with it. Thank you.
So you've done a number of different things to get yourself into a better space.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, I worked out that you don't need antiques. So I sold everything. I literally sold antiques, I sold jewellery, I just sold the lot. I can remember trying to get in contact with our banker. He wouldn't return my calls. I soon discovered that I was very attractive being a Mrs., but when I became a single person, at the time, I was no longer in my CEO role, so my income was, barely 30, 40 grand a year. So my serviceability was suddenly on life support. That phone calls weren't returned, emails weren't returned. I went through, I think, 3 different brokers, another couple of banks. I then, at the end of about a 3-month period, I thought, this is ridiculous. What do you need to do to get out of this? So at the last round of rejection, I can remember vividly sitting in the Woolworths car park, crying, going, this sucks. And I sat there for an hour, crying. Bad look, your eyes go puffy, it's just nasty. And then I got out my mobile phone and I rang my sister Sharon, and I said, can I come and live with you, please? So I'd gone from living in almost a $2 million PPR to a robust household of 7 people, to selling my stuff and moving into my sister's place with her husband, Gorgeous, and my 3 nephews in the spare room.
And then you met your soulmate.
Oh yeah, I met Paddy. So I met Paddy, and some people said, but surely what you've gone through, how could you ever, possibly ever, trust anyone again? I said, it's simple. I've never stopped believing in people. Mm-hmm. I actually just think I was in a special circumstance where what happened to me doesn't happen that often. Yes, I know it does happen, but I learnt a lot through it, and I still believe people are beautiful. I still believe people want to engage with you, and I met Paddy. That again was my son Lachlan's doing. He poured me a glass of wine one night and he said, I'm signing you up for eHarmony. I said, I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going on eHarmony. And he said, well, yes, you are. Drink. He said, you talk, I'll type.
More drink, more talk.
Basically. I met Paddy through eHarmony, and I tell you what, the man's an absolute gem. He's intelligent, he stimulates me, he's never owned an investment property before he met me, had always wanted to. He'd gone through his own asset realignment event. And so I got started, and he was with me every weekend. Dipner said, you've got to put the work in. And my gosh, every weekend we were out there. We were talking to agents. I was already on Investor, so I was refining my strategy, and he supported me 100%. Didn't have my education that I'd had through the Ultimate program at that stage, but gee, he's a quick learner, and he supported me. So we were away.
So you go into this first deal, Southern Adelaide. You buy a site, and you can put something on this site.
I can. I thought it was just a splitter, but then I went back to my manuals, back to my education, and one of the key things that I remember Dipner saying at the Ultimate program was, you got to manufacture growth. So when I did the FISO on it and got out my manuals and did the FISO, I went, I'm manufacturing a little bit of growth, but is it going to get me into my next deal? So I met with that council's town planners. I got some independent advice as well, and they said, no, you should be putting 4 on it. So I changed my plans, and that property was subdivided into 4 townhouses. So it was my first deal. My strategy was to, remembering that I'd lost all of my savings, I'd lost all of my equity, didn't have any super. So at my stage in life, my strategy was to manufacture growth and manufacture equity so that I could start to think about a really good retirement.
Because one of the things you had to do was go back and get a job so you could service loans and do all of that. So if you're wondering how this loan was serviced, was because you went back into the executive role or the PAYG role.
I went back into and this was when I was living with my sister. I went back into, I swallowed the humble pie and I went, I'm absolutely determined. And by that stage, Adelaide, stunning, but quite finicky, couldn't go back into a CEO role because I'd been out of the market for a while and I was, stale. So I actually took a job that I'd done, a good 15 years prior at middle management level. They weren't plentiful in the metropolitan area of Adelaide, so I took a job in a regional area of Adelaide, about an hour and a bit out of Adelaide, and used that hour commute twice a day to listen to more podcasts and do my education on the road. It's a stunning mobile university. I highly recommend it.
Now, with this here, you're in. This is your deal, but you've got an agreement with yourself, Paddy, and your sister that you're doing this. I was going to say
the family property portfolio. Yes.
Love circle's not the right word. And you're going to go and invest, and your main avenue right now is to increase as much wealth as you can in the short time you've got so that you can all retire.
Correct. So One of the other things that I remember Dipnet saying is surround yourself with people who know more than you. So I literally pounded the streets in Adelaide and developed what I call my A team, my development team. So I was comfortable with project managing, and I'm reasonably organised, so I knew that I could project manage if I had the right people in my team. So I spent a lot of time in making sure I had the right finance broker, the right accountant that knew company structures and trust structures. I found a builder. I said, look, I need an introduction to the owner of the building company. I don't want to be treated like a mum and dad investor. I want to go through the back door. So I made sure I went through the back door. I made sure I was sitting at his boardroom table saying, here is my strategy, here is my plan, let's work together. I found my development consultant that helps me subdivide the land. I had literally an A team. I was so proud of myself to actually have the guts to go out and say, can you teach me? I learn fast. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'll keep giving you business, and I know we'll work really well together.
So that's fantastic. You make $227,000 in equity uplift. You keep them all, sits there at $13,000 passive income. Why would you sell it? And you go off. And so with Paddy, you find this deal. So Paddy's not really any idea around how to invest, but you're there.
Never had an investment property, never owned shares.
So he goes in and buys this one. You find it and run this for him.
Yes, we find this one. So this was in Eastern Adelaide, a little bit more upmarket part of Adelaide. So we literally looked at the block and I said, here's the FISO. I think everyone else was saying because of its size you can only do a splitter. I could quite clearly see that you could put 3 really quite substantial townhouses on it. Did my due diligence, checked it with my people. They were happy that what I thought we could do, you could do. And yeah, we did the deal.
So $495,000 uplift in this one and sitting there at $9,000 passive. So can you see every time there's a positive cash flow, keep them all, equity uplift, money back into the next deal. Like this is pretty fantastic.
Yep.
So again, you go off and do it again. So this is, what date did you start this?
May 15.
So May 2015, right? So a year and a bit after that point in time from that first purchase. You go off and do this one.
Yes. Again, Paddy and I looked at it and he said, well, the agents are saying you could possibly fit 3 on it. And I said, no, I mean, the development plan says this. So I met with the town planners within council and I said, look, according to your criteria, we can fit 5 on there. I said, here are the setbacks. I knew that development plan inside out. I read the development plans before I went to bed each night. I wanted to know as much as the people that I needed to. I didn't want to waste their time. I didn't want to have to go to council and say, look, here's a block of land, what can I do with it? You're wasting their time. I just happy to make mistakes and be told I was wrong, but I went to the council, I went to my people, my builder, and said, can we put 5 on here? And they said yes. So we went into the deal.
So only if your ex-husband knew what, this is property porn to me, really. This is what he should have been spending his money on. So you go off and now you've got your sister. You're living with your sister, you've got a few things going on and they've never invested in property either.
Oh, super conservative. My sister's a violinist and my brother-in-law is an IT manager. Never had a share, never had an investment property.
So you find them a site?
Found them a site. And they were literally, bless, shaking at the knees, absolutely shaking at the knees. And under the table, so was I, because it's one thing to do your own deals and stuff up, but when it's for other people that you love and it was part of the family portfolio, yeah, you got to breathe deeply. But I went, no, I've got a great team around me. I've had the greatest of education. They understood the numbers, so I'm not saying that they went into it blindly. My brother-in-law, Derek, he scrutinised. He did his own FISO, and he went, no, I get it. Let's do it.
And without you being there, there's no way in the world they would have done it.
Oh, gosh, no way.
No.
No, they would have done what an accountant would have said at best, which was just go and buy a property and negatively
Get your
gear it.
tax
You'll
back.
be great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you do that one, so they're $364,000 better off. There's another pool into the family trust that's going on with everyone putting in.
Yep.
You go on this one here, so it's another one that you go and do.
Yep, another one that I went into. Again, this one was a corner block like another of the others.
Just want to say, it's just getting boring now.
Oh.
No, it's
Sorry,
not.
but this
it's
turns
not.
me on.
It's not. This is amazing. So this is due to be completed in April?
Yeah, March, April.
So that's what stage we're at right now.
Yep.
Again, another estimated equity uplift of 328 and a cash flow of 11 grand. You know, you could individually sell off components of this and pay down debt and get more cash flow out of it, but it's not
Absolutely.
within the thought process of what all
No,
of you are
that's
trying
not
to
our
achieve.
strategy. Yeah.
So you've got another one just in case. 3 townhouses?
Yeah, 3 townhouses. Again, this one's about 7 k's from the CBD. I'm actually expecting the planning assessment to be approved today, so we're hoping that construction will start in late January once the tradies come back from leave.
Fabulous. And, well, whatever. Just another one. What's this one? Because this one is amazing.
Yeah. This one, I will get emotional. So this one, great education with Ian and Dimpner. And at one of the events, I met a lady called Nikki. She lives in Perth, and she was wanting to get started. And we were chatting, and about a week after, we kept in contact via telephone, and she said, look, why don't we go and do, through Dimpner, why don't we go and do Ian's high-res program? So we did that in August because I was really happy with the developments, but I wanted to stand out from the crowd. I wanted to really serve the community. And the light bulb went off at your program. I went, yeah, you can serve your community, you can create value, and you can also create money for yourself. So I was really keyed up about that. So when I got back, I went back into one of the council areas. I rang each council area in metropolitan Adelaide and said, look, I'm interested in doing affordable housing. What do your policies allow? And basically there were currently only two council areas in Adelaide. So I picked one, went and met with them. Then they put me on to an arm of state government. And I could see that if I could marry the affordable housing guidelines in the local government development plan with the higher strategy of what state government wanted to achieve in relation to affordable housing, I could possibly put the two together and create housing for people at disadvantage, meaning it would be really cool to create affordable housing so that people could live in the areas of their choice. If they grew up 4 or 5 k's from the CBD, how do they retain that community bond where their family and their extended network are, rather than having to move, 30, 35, 40 k from the city? So I really studied that super quickly. I met with government quite a few times. I made lots of phone calls, got my head around the requirements. Nikki was really, really enthusiastic about it. She's been an extraordinary support, and literally, once you decide to do something, it comes to find you. So I found this property in inner Adelaide. It's about 3 k from the CBD, worked out why it was not attractive to, the stock standard developers, and negotiated the deal. And we've commenced the planning process, so it's been ticked by state government. They've given their approval to local government, so it's just going through the normal planning processes at the moment. And we're building 5 2-bedroom townhouses that are at a capped affordable housing price, and still making 20% out of the deal.
So you can't sell them for more than?
350.
So for $350,000, someone has the opportunity to buy one of these units. So you're not allowed to make more than 350. You're still making $290,000 profit. And how many people are on that waiting list?
3,000.
So you can't tell me that as a developer that's in the game of putting product to the market, that you can't meet the need of an affordable housing market. I said I wasn't going to cry. Damn you! So the whole point of high res is around affordable accommodation, and I've got a student up here that, working with Dimpner and working with us, has achieved exactly what we're trying to do. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. Thank you.
You're in a position now where, with your son, you want to help your son.
I want to help my son. So my beautiful son is 25. He lives with disability. He has schizophrenia and bipolar, and I'm his carer. So it was my choice not to allow him a life of living in a mental health boarding communal environment. I wanted to create independent living for him close to the family, so he had that family support. So through what I've done over the last 18 months, I was able to buy him a 2-bedroom flat in an area that he wants to live in. So he's there and he's settled. Yeah.
Good on you. So there's a few things more important than property to you, obviously.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You've done a lot for your sister, you've done a lot for your partner, your son's done a lot for you, you've done a lot for your son, and it's very great to see. So what are some of the learnings that you've come away with?
Surround yourself with experts. Clearly you value education, that's why you're here. Take the knowledge and then put it into action. It's okay to feel fear, you're supposed to. If you're doing something for the first time, you're supposed to be fearful. It's unfamiliar, but the more you do it, the more familiar it becomes. What Dimpna said to me when I did Ultimate is stuck in my mind. Manufacture growth and create that neutral or positive cash flow. You can help others and you can make money. So I'm doing the affordable housing thing, which I'm so passionate about, but I also am a part of a networking group in Adelaide where I'm currently mentoring 3 other couples that are scared. They've got the knowledge, so we're just going to make it happen for them. So it would be it's important for me, to other people, to achieve their dreams.
So tell us, from when you started to where you are now, what's your journey been like?
Oh gosh, it's been a ride. And I haven't been here and gone straight up in a linear fashion. It's been like that. It's been an absolute roller coaster. I've learnt an extraordinary amount about myself. I've learnt that I am resilient if I nourish my mind. Dipna's talked about it before. Nourish your mind. Feed it stuff that will be helpful to you so that you can serve others. Nourish your mind. Apply the knowledge.
Where are you at now?
And do you know, when I started this exercise, it was Nikki who actually encouraged me to enter the competition. I knew that I was busy and I knew we were achieving a lot. It wasn't until and Ian said, you need to give me this information. And so when I collected all of that and went, oh, well, that's pretty cool. This is why I've been so busy. So in the last in the last 18 months, we now have an investment portfolio of 22 properties. The portfolio value is over 9.5 million, and we've had an equity uplift of 1.8 million, and it's in positive cash flow territory.
Isn't that amazing?
Thank you. You know how I said nourish your mind? This is on my screensaver. It's on my phone. It sits above my little plot in my study at home. It's about someone very wisely said, "Be yourself because everyone else is taken." It's Oscar Wilde, but just be yourself. Be in it for the long game. Really focus on your vision. I mean, it's supposed to be hard at the beginning. If it wasn't hard, everyone would be doing it. But just work through the hard bits. Get to the middle bits. It'll be even messier. It's like this, but just stick at it. And when you do get to, and I don't think you ever end, but when you do come out of that period where you go, gee, I'm so glad I stuck at it, it's actually quite good. It's actually a really great feeling because you're now in a position to really serve the community. I know I'm different to most of the people out there that have their way of doing investments and property, but I know I'm like you in this room. We've had good education, and the last thing I'd like to say is I use the 1% rule. Focus on improving 1% each and every day. Imagine if that happened each and every day, and 1%, everyone can do 1%. Imagine where you'll be in 30 days, 90 days, 18 months.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.